myself the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah. Hi, Congressman Takano. We'd like to sincerely thank you for joining us today for Pizza and Politics. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, there are obviously circumstances that stop us from having pizza here, as the title suggests, but we'd still like to know, what is your favorite pizza topping?
Oh, you know what? I'm really upset there's no pizza. We can't meet in person too, because pizza is one of my great weaknesses. I can avoid most carbs except for pizza. And my favorite pizza topping, it varies. It kind of oscillates between sausage and pepperoni. But, I'm not much in for this, what's that, chicken pizza? They call it, I forget what they call that, but the California Pizza Kitchen chicken salad. But I love pizza. I have to admit.
Yeah.
So much so I've made it at home. I made
Yeah,
it
I
during
would
the
have to
pandemic. I made it during the pandemic.
agree.
Yeah, if we ever meet with you, I'll be sure to bring you like a meat lover's pizza. It seems like you would really enjoy that.
Yes.
So getting right
Yes.
into it, you were
Okay.
a teacher for over 20 years and you joined Congress in 2012. What inspired you to take the first step of becoming active in politics, and did you have any specific motivations?
Well, I first ran in 1992. That 2012 was not the first time I ran, and I ran twice. Actually, I ran three times. 2020 and 1992, 1994, and then 2012. And running for Congress has been something that I thought about doing. And actually, getting into politics is something I thought about doing ever since I was in elementary school. And I was inspired by the whole Watergate era and the political lessons of the Richard Nixon impeachment. And I had some real wonderful teachers in elementary school, in 5th and 6th grade. And then I watched the impeachment hearings the summer after I was in the 6th grade. And I just sort of made a life plan to go into public service and to do to eventually be a member of Congress. Every time there's a roll call on the committee where they call out your name and you vote yay or nay, I just remember watching that as a young boy, being fascinated with it and all of the procedure and formality of it, but also the really high stakes issues surrounding the constitutional crisis of a president that had broken the law and the accountability that was being pursued by the Congress. And a particular member of Congress, I'll wrap this up real soon, was Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, was an African-American member of Congress, and she was then among a very few minority women elected to Congress. And myself being, an Asian American, a Japanese American, she made me, her presence and her forcefulness in her participation in those events as a member of Congress definitely set the example for me that I could aspire to do that job myself.
Yeah, definitely. So once again, moving back to your teaching career a bit, how do you think your time as a teacher has actually influenced your decisions and the way you vote on certain issues on education reform?
Well, I don't have a lot of patience for people who come up with simplistic ideas about accountability. There's a whole school of thought around accountability in education, which focuses on standardized testing, on high stakes testing, and that was just a flawed idea from the very beginning. And I definitely also, so that's one area, the high stakes testing and educational accountability in our K-12 schools. Uh, I don't like people who have very simplistic notions and want to push through uh, that kind of test. I've seen instances where so much has gone into dealing with testing in the schools that it actually takes away the focus from teaching and learning. Um, I also, was a community college trustee at the same time I was a teacher. So I kind of did those concurrently. And so I have a big commitment to public higher education, our community college system. I really do see our K-12 and our community colleges and our public higher educational system as really the huge element in social mobility and economic mobility in our country, and what we mean by opportunity in our country. So I'm really concerned making sure that we adequately fund education. Um, I would also say that having been a teacher, I I I, I understand the ways in which uh, that that our students in the public school systems need to be supported through nutrition, uh, making sure that they have their ability to focus on what it is they're learning. I will also say that one of the things I took a leadership on is reining in the abuses of for-profit colleges. These colleges that offer very slim, poor programs, and they spend a lot of money marketing to and recruiting uh, uh, students, and take their GI Bill money, take their Pell Grant money, and put them into debt, and then offer them education that really doesn't get them anywhere, or students don't complete it and are stuck with all this debt. This is a very different problem than the generalized debt issues. I'm concerned that we also need to make college a lot more affordable to students. And so anyway, I think my background as a teacher and as a community college trustee, naturally have led me to be on the Educational Labor Committee and weigh in on any number of issues that will come across, the committee's jurisdiction.
So now moving on to the economy, as a promoter of small businesses, what do you think the importance of small businesses in our economy is in our economy, both on a local and national level?
Well, small businesses, no matter where you are in a country, whether you're in Riverside, Moreno Valley, Paris, they're a very important source of economic activity. They provide a huge share of our jobs, and we need a healthy small business sector, and nationally it's the same thing. So there's not a part in our country where a small business or a thriving small business community isn't important. What's really going to be important for our small businesses is to make sure that we come out of this pandemic as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. We have to be both focused on alacrity or quickness and safety, but we can't move quicker than it is safe. So, keeping the infections low, getting as many people vaccinated as possible, will set the conditions for business activity to, take off. In the meantime, the federal government has been essential in being able to provide the the safety net and the backstop, the financial backstop for as many Americans as possible to be able to get through this pandemic. We can. Some economists have likened what we've done at the federal level. If you can think of the whole nation has been sort of in this induced coma, intentional coma. Sometimes doctors will put patients in a coma on purpose to allow the body to heal, especially head injuries. You can put in a coma to kind of have down and gives it time to heal. That's kind of what happened during this pandemic. We really had to give people a way to survive, not have to engage in the normal things they do in order to keep people from congregating and doing the things they would do. We're obviously coming out of that, but we're also at a place where we've just got a lot of people that haven't been vaccinated yet. We want to avoid shaming those people. We want to avoid being coercive, but we need to persuade. And we are now at the place where we have a lot of people who have concerns, and some of them are very legitimate concerns about vaccine hesitancy. And so I think the best thing we can do for small businesses is make sure that we convince more than 65, 75% of the community to get vaccinated.
Yeah, definitely. As a person who got my second dose this week, I can definitely agree. Like, the vaccines so far have not been that bad, and having the vaccine is super important. Just outside of that, on the topic of presidential elections, you've mentioned that over $6 billion was spent on the US presidential election this year, and you said it was unacceptable. So how do you wish to change this, and where do you think this money should go in the future?
Well, I think number one, we need to deal with the Supreme Court decision that said that money is the same as free speech. That decision by the Supreme Court has unleashed money from billionaires and corporations, and it has drowned out the voices of ordinary people. Even somebody who can afford $1,000 donation or a $500 donation. That's, for me, that would be a lot of money even. But a person like that, even a person who can give even that amount, feels completely, I think, overpowered by someone who can give $1 million, write $1 million check, or give, for God's sake, multiples of millions of dollars, which is what some people can do and some corporations can do. That's really the problem of the amount of money that goes into politics. And the other part of it is the lack of transparency. There are ways that money flows into campaigns, it flows into digital marketing, into mailers, into television commercials, that is dark. We call it dark money, meaning we don't know where that money comes from. And that's also a result of kind of, a compendium of court decisions and insufficient law. So I think we need to end dark money. We need strategies we need to find a way to deal with the Citizens United decision. I was trying to remember what the decision was called, the Citizens United decision of the Supreme Court. We need to find ways to either overturn it or effectively to neuter it through another effective strategy. One strategy is in HR 1, which would match, I think, on an 8-to-1 basis, or a multiple of basis. So if you were to give, like, say, $50 to a candidate, or even $10 to a candidate, it would be multiplied. There would be a match by the government of 8 times that amount, right? And and the idea was that this only works for small donors. So there's a way for us to kind of elevate. Um, that's one strategy. I'm not convinced it's necessarily going to work, but these are sort of creative ideas that we need to get around this feeling from, I think, a lot of people that their voice is greatly drowned out by big money, and that our democracy is being manipulated by a lot of messaging and propaganda that's funded by not ordinary people.
We only have a few more questions to ask you about youth in politics. But what first step do you think high school students should take to become more involved in politics?
Well, the first step is to do what you're doing, is to engage your elected officials. Um, I was involved in something called the Junior Statesmen of America, which is a kind of civic engagement group among youth, and it's very much youth led still. I'm actually on the board of directors of the Junior Statesmen, and organizations like that that are largely, I think, led by students, where you meet regularly on campus or off campus. You engage in sort of discussions and debates, and um, you elect your own leaders. That's that's a really great way to do it. Also, being involved in your own student government, that's important. That's also a possible place where you can develop your leadership skills. But I think participating in any kind of activity that involves organizations, where you have an opportunity to lead um, and contribute and develop leadership skills. I think it's important to develop leadership skills, persuasion skills, um, cooperation skills, and also thinking skills. Um, and I think, a place where you can systematically study issues. Um, I know for many young people, the global climate change and the environment is an issue that they care about a lot, because it really involves your future. Someone who's like in their 70s and 80s, it may not, whose lifespan is kind of limited. But for you, who are going to have to live with the lack of action we take now, I see a lot of urgency among young people, and so there's an opportunity for you to kind of dig into certain issues and organize yourselves around that. And I've seen young people become very effective organizers and become very effective people that can lead on certain issues. So I think it's up to you to kind of find out where those opportunities are, where are your passions, where are your interests.
Okay, awesome. So thank you so much for joining us today for Pizza and Politics. Just to wrap up today's interview, and it being AAPI History Month, do you have any message for young Asian American students who might want to run for office in the future?
If it's your thing, running for office in politics often goes against a lot of the ways in which your culture in which you've raised has taught you to be. You have to be, I wouldn't say, you have to be less polite. You have to be a more assertive, and your parents may not approve of that. This is what you want to do with your life. They may want you to do something that's a little more safe and practical. But what I would say is, your, representation matters, and it matters that different people of different backgrounds run for office and get elected and represent those different experiences. We get better outcomes in decision making in government when we have diversity in all its respects. So I would say, if this is your calling, answer the call.